السلام عليكم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أنا الأستاذ عماد عوض الله، مدرس اللغة الإنجليزية في مدرسة ثانوية بروكين للذكور. نستغل هذا الظرف الطارئ على وضعنا على بلدنا بالكامل لمحاولة تعويض طلبتنا بما قد يستفيدوا منه في خلال هذه الفترة اللي هم معطلين وجالسين في البيت. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. سوف نبدأ معكم بدرس What is the relative clauses؟ ما هي الجمل الموصولة؟ بداية يجب أن نعلم What is the clause؟ ما هو المقصود بكلمة clause؟ In English, clause means a group of words that has a subject and a verb. يعني هي مجموعة من الكلمات. هاي الكلمات لازم يكون فيها فاعل ويكون فيها فعل. لأن في عنا there are two kinds of clauses in English. هناك نوعين من clauses في اللغة الإنجليزية. The first one is main clause or simple sentence or independent clause. النوع الأول إحنا بنسميه اللي هو simple sentence، الجمل البسيطة، يعني مجموعة الكلمات اللي تعطي معنى كامل بنفسها دون أن تعتمد على غيرها. That's why we call it independent clause or main clause. Like when you say, I go to school every day. We have a group of words. We have I, a subject. We have go, a verb. This group of words together form what we call a simple sentence. It gives a complete meaning by itself. It does not depend on other clauses. The second clause, we call it a dependent clause or subordinate clause. This clause does not give a complete meaning by itself. It must depend on the main clause in order to have a complete thought. Relative clause is one of the dependent clauses. Now let's define what is the relative clause. How do we use it in the sentence? A relative clause is a group of words that begins, as you can see here, that has a subject and a verb course, and it must begin with a relative pronoun. Now the relative pronouns, we have different relative pronouns such as who, which, or that, whose, and where. These are relative pronouns. But the whole sentence together, which begins with the relative pronoun called relative clauses. We use who, this relative pronoun, when we are talking about people. The purpose of using the relative clause is that we have the two simple sentences. We are going to join them together to form one linking or one complex sentence. الهدف من استخدام relative clauses إنه أربط جملتين مع بعض مشان أكون جملة واحدة باختصار بدل ما يضل نكرر in order not to repeat the nouns and the pronouns. So look at the first example here. We use who again for people. I thanked the boy. This is the first sentence. This is a main clause. The second sentence, he helped the old man. This is also another sentence. So we have two sentences. We have two main clauses here. Each one is independent. Each one gives a complete meaning by itself. Now the pronoun he here refers to the boy, to the noun before it. So in order to avoid keep repeating these nouns and the pronouns, we join these two sentences to form one sentence by using the relative pronoun who. He, it replaces the pronoun or the noun the boy. So we say, I thank the boy. We delete the second pronoun, which is he, and replace it with who, or we can replace it with that, who helped the old man. Now this is just one sentence. We formed this sentence by joining the two sentences into one sentence. From who here till the end, this is called relative clause. Who alone or that alone is called a relative pronoun. So this is the relative clause, a group of words. This is a group of words that has subject, that has a verb, and it begins with a relative pronoun. Now the second relative pronoun we are talking about is which. We use which when we are talking about things, not people. Like here, I read the book. I bought it last week. Notice here in the first sentence, he is the subject. But here, it is an object. Why? It comes after the verb. So this is a main clause. This is also a main clause. So I have two main clauses together. I want to join them together using the relative clauses. Now, this pronoun it here, it refers to the book. So, in order to avoid repeating it once again, we can join these two sentences, two main clauses, into one sentence. Now, the book here is not a person, it is a thing. So, we can join these two sentences saying, I read the book. I delete the pronoun which refers to this noun. I replace it with which or that. I bought last week. Now this group of words together, also called relative clause, and this is relative pronoun alone, this is a relative pronoun. So in order to avoid, again, keep saying the two sentences, I join them together into one sentence. In Arabic يعني اللي هي الجملة الموصولة ضمير الوصل. بدل ما نقول أنا قرأت الكتاب، أنا اشتريت الكتاب last week، أنا بجملهم في جملة واحد. قرأت الكتاب الذي اشتريته last week. هذا المقصود بالwhich أو that. الذي، التي اللي هم بالعربي الأسماء الموصولة. In English we call them relative pronouns. Now I can use that in the place of who and in the place of which for both. This has only happened in defining relative clauses, as we're going to see later. For both people and things. Here that, it replaces which. Here that, it replaces who. So I can use it in the place of who and in the place of which. I use whose now when we are talking about possessives. When the second sentence has a possessive pronoun like my, your, his, their, or possessive nouns, nouns with apostrophe s. For example, Ali is the man. This is the sentence. His son is my friend. So I am talking about the man's son in the second sentence. His son, it means the man's son. So the second sentence has a possessive construction. So I want to join them together. I use whose instead of who or the. Ali is the man. Now I delete his and I replace it with the relative pronoun whose son. All possessive pronouns has to be followed by nouns. Ali is the man whose son, I delete his, is my friend, I complete the sentence. Now here, from whose son to the end, this is called a relative clause. And I use where when we are talking about places. When I want to join two sentences together, but the second pronoun refers to a place in the first one. I returned to the home. This is the first sentence. This is the main clause. I was brought up in it. It refers to the home. So the second sentence originally goes as I was brought up in that house. So instead of keep saying a house for the second time, I join these two sentences together. It becomes like this. I returned to the home. I delete it. I replace it with the pronoun who, the possessive pronoun or relative pronoun where I was brought up in. So again, these are the relative clauses. I join two sentences together to form one complex or one long sentence. Now, there are two kinds of clauses in English. The first one we call it defining relative clause. The second one we call it non-defining relative clause. Now, what's the difference between defining relative clause and what's the difference between non-defining relative clause? How do we use them? And why do we use them? Now, let's start with the first one, defining relative clause. Defining relative clause means that this clause gives a necessary or gives a very important information to the noun before it. We need this clause to define the noun. Without it, the meaning becomes unclear. So, defining relative clauses add necessary information to the noun before the relative pronoun to make it clear which one we mean, which one we refer to. This defining clause, as we are going to see, can't be deleted, can't be omitted, and can't be used between commas. No commas are used here. We can't use commas because it is necessary. This information is necessary to mention. Look at the example here. I can't eat the dates. If I stop here, the sentence becomes unclear. What dates? can't you eat? But when I say I can't eat the dates which or that fall to the ground, this means that I am talking only about these dates, not all dates in general. So this information is very important to define the noun before it. What dates we refer to. So we can't put commas here. We can't separate these clause or this defining clause from the noun before it. So we need this information. It gives important or necessary information to the noun. This is called defining relative clause, because if we delete it, if we cancel this clause, the meaning becomes unclear. And notice here, this is an important point also, that the noun before the relative clause is a noun, not a name. Any noun needs more information to define it. But if it is a name, as we're going to see later, there is no need to define it because it's definite by itself. Now, the second part of the defining clauses, we call it non-defining relative clause. This is like in Arabic, if you like say, الجملة المعترضة. It gives just extra information. We can delete it without affecting the meaning, without changing the meaning of the sentence. So non-defining relative clauses add extra, not necessary, extra. We can delete it. Additional information that can be deleted. We can delete it. We can take it out. We can leave it out from the sentence. Commas are used here. We must use commas here because we are going to show that this clause, I can leave it out. I can take it out from the sentence without affecting the meaning. We can't use, this is also another important point, we can't use that with non-defining relative clauses. Look at the example here. Shakespeare, this is a name, of course, so it's definite by itself. Who wrote Romeo and Juliet? This is just extra information. Was a great writer. If I cancel this clause, the sentence becomes Shakespeare was a great writer. This is a complete meaningful sentence. So this information is extra. I can take it out. Like in Arabic, just الجملة المعترض. Like if we say قال عمر بن الخطاب رضي الله عنه. If I delete رضي الله عنه, the sentence remains clear and remains thoughtful. Okay? Now let's move to the third part. Now I wrote this note for you to help you understand clearly the relative clauses. Defining relative clauses usually come, this is just a general note. Generally, defining relative clauses come after nouns. Nouns, they are indefinite. So they need extra information, they need necessary information to let them definite. Usually come after nouns, not after names, to define them. For example, the woman, this word, woman, is a noun. It is not a name. The woman who or that phoned me was very polite. Now, this is the relative clause. Who phoned me? Here, it's a group of words, as we said before. Has begins with the relative pronoun, who or that, and it has only one verb. This is the verb, phoned. This is another verb. This one is not part of the relative clause. So, who phoned me? This information, if I delete it from the sentence, if I take it out, the sentence becomes the woman was very polite. I am talking about a woman in general. What woman are you referring to? So this information is very necessary to add. It's very necessary to define what woman I am talking about. So I can't delete this information. That's why we call it defining relative clause. I don't use commas here. No commas as used here. And you can see that we can use that in the place of who. But in non-defining relative clauses, which I can leave it out, I can take it out, usually come after names. If the noun before the relative pronoun is a name, if it has possessives such as my, your, his, etc. If it has demonstrative, this book, for example, I am talking about specific book. All these things, possessives, names, demonstratives, or after adjectives sometimes, they make the noun definite. So in this case, the information which I add after these names are not necessary. Look here, Alibaba. Alibaba is a name, is not a noun. Alibaba, who stole the treasure, was a poor woodcutter. Now this clause, who stole the treasure, if I take it out, the sentence remains clear. The sentence give a complete meaning. Alibaba was a poor cutter. So this information is extra. I can take it out. That's why we call it non-defining relative clause. We have to use it between commas. No need, we can't use that in the place of who here because this is a non-defining relative clause. Number 2, my brother. I use the possessive adjective my. To make the noun, I'm talking about it specific. My brother, who is 15 years old. This is extra information. Plays chess well. So if I delete this clause, my brother plays chess well, it gives a complete thought, a complete meaning by itself. So I can take this clause out. I can leave it out. That's why we call it non-defining relative clause. I have to put it between two commas. And I can't use that in the place of who in the non-defining relative clauses. This book, I'm talking about demonstrative. This book, so I am talking about specific book. Book, the word book is a noun, but when I use this before it or demonstrative, I make it clear, I make it definite. This book, which is on the table, is mine. If I take out this clause, the sentence remains, this book is mine. So the sentence is complete. It gives us a complete thought and a complete meaning. So that's why we call this a non-defining, because we can leave it out. And because it is a non-defining, we have to put it between commas. And we can't use that in the place of which. The last sentence, he has 2 strong sons. The word son is a noun, but it is preceded by an adjective, so it makes it more definite. Who lived with them? إلى آخره. He has 2 sons, 2 strong sons. If I delete this clause, who lived with them, the sentence remains complete. So I can take it out. We use a comma before the relative, non-defining relative clause. Now, subject and object relative clauses. We can replace the subject with who or which or that, and we can replace the object. If we replace the subject, we delete the subject in the second sentence, we are talking about subject relative clause. If we delete the object, we are talking about an object relative clause. To make it easy for us or for you, the sentence becomes subject relative clause if it is followed immediately by a verb. So if which or who or that followed by a verb, we are talking about a subject relative clause. If which or who or that followed by a noun or by a pronoun, definitely we are talking about an object. When the pronouns who or which and that refer to the subject, we need to include them, and they have to be followed by verbs. We can't delete them. Look at the example, for example, this one. Fairy stories often feature animals which or that talk. Which or that followed immediately by the verb. So here we are talking about a subject. We can't take out which or who that. If we take them out in a توجيه هذا بتاخذوه, we have to add ing to the verb, but you are not required to do that at this specific point. Again, feature stories often feature animals, fairy stories, which or that talk. The verb here, talk, comes after that or after which, so definitely we are talking about a subject pronoun. Jack is a young boy who or that lives. The here followed by a verb. This means that we are talking about a subject pronoun. We can't delete which or that, and they are followed by the verb itself. That's the woman who or that phoned me. Notice here that after who or that we use a verb. So because they are followed immediately by a verb, they are talking about subject pronouns. We can't delete them. We can't take out which or who from the sentence. But look at this example, for example. This is the book, which or that. Notice here, I borrowed. It's not followed by a verb immediately. It's followed by a pronoun. This means that we are talking about a verb. The original sentence, this is the book, I borrowed the book. So I delete the noun or the pronoun which refers to the object. So how do we know? If which or that followed by a noun or by a pronoun, we are talking about a verb. In this case, I can leave out the relative pronoun. That's why I put them between brackets. I can cancel them. I can take them out. So we can say, this is the book I borrowed. The sentence is complete and it gives a complete thought. I apologized to the man whose foot, notice this is the relative clause, I had stepped on. It's followed by a pronoun also, so I can take it out. This is the house where I grew up. So this relative pronoun followed by a pronoun or by a noun, I'm talking about an object, we can take it out. This is the house I grew up in. Now, I have exercises for you, and I answered these questions to make it easy for you. Join the two short sentences. This is the first short sentence. The story happens in Java. To make one longer sentence using relative pronoun. And this is the second clause. The story happens in Java. Jaffa is the city in Palestine. Now, the word which is repeated, Jaffa and Jaffa. The story happens in Jaffa. We don't make any changes in the first sentence. I delete the second pronoun or noun which refers to the one before it, and I replace it with relative pronoun which, then you complete, which is city in Palestine. Now, which here it's followed by is by a verb. So we are talking about a subject. We can't delete it. Have you seen the letter? It came yesterday. It here refers to the letter. So I can take it out, replace it with the relative pronoun which. Have you seen the letter? The first sentence as it is. I delete it and replace it with which came yesterday. After which also we have a verb. So we are talking about a subject pronoun. We can't take which out. The main character is very poor. He has three sons. I am referring here to the main character. So the main character who has three sons is very poor. Notice that I use relative clauses between commas. This means that relative clause, I can take it out. It's a non-defining relative clause. It's just extra information. The main character is very poor. It gives a complete meaning, a complete thought without depending on this clause. So this is non-defining. I can take it out. That's why I put it between commas. I can't replace who with that in this case. This is the book. I was reading it yesterday. It here, it refers to the book. Again, it's an object. This is the book, the first sentence as it is. Don't make any changes in the first sentence. Now replace it with which because we are talking about a book, not a person. This is the book which I was reading yesterday. Notice that which here is followed by a pronoun. This means that we are talking about an object. In this case, I can leave out which. I can say this is the book I was reading yesterday. Another example, that is the same film. I saw it at the cinema last week. It here, it refers to the film. So I am talking about a thing. That is the same thing, the film. I don't change anything in the first sentence. I delete it, replace it with which, and complete the sentence as it is. This is the first film which I saw at the cinema last week, which here followed by I, so I can take it out. I can leave it out because it is an object pronoun. Number 6, this is the folk tale. I remember it from my childhood. It here refers to the folk tale. So this is the folk tale, the sentence, first sentence as it is. I delete it, replace it with which because we are talking about things. Then you continue your sentence as it is. Notice which here is followed by a pronoun. This means that we are talking about an object. Relative clauses, I can delete it. I can take it out. She is the new student. She arrived last week. Here, she returned to the new student. But here, she is a subject, not an object after a verb. It's a subject. I use the first sentence as it is. She is the new student. I delete she and replace it with who arrived last week. This sentence, she is the new student who arrived last week. Here, who followed by a verb. So we are talking about a subject relative pronoun. I can't take this relative pronoun out. I can't leave it out. Zarif brings back gifts. They are from different parts of the country. They here refers to the gifts. And again, they here, it's a subject. It refers to the gift. Zarif brings back gifts, the first sentence as it is. You delete they and replace it with which because we are talking about things. Then you complete your sentence as it is. Which here followed by a verb. This means that we are talking about a subject relative clause. In this case, you can't leave it out. Okay, now we continue with the second question, another kind of questions. I gave you the sentence, but I want you to use the missing relative pronoun in this sentence. Thank you for the book. Space, I enjoyed reading. I want you to use which or who or that relative pronoun. Here we are talking about a book, about a thing, so the missing relative pronoun must be which. Now which here, as you can see, it's followed by a pronoun, so we are talking about an object. Can we use that in this case? Because this is a non-defining relative clause, don't use that in the place of which. Number 2, the hero, comma, name is Jack, lives with his mother. Here, this space is followed by a noun. When it is followed by a noun, we are talking about a possessive. Whose name is Jack, lives with his mother. I can also delete or take out this relative clause because it's non-defining relative clause. If we say the hero lives with his mother, the sentence is clear and it's not missing anything. So this information between the commas, just extra information. He lived in Cairo. Cairo, as you know, is a place of a city, is a place of, it's the capital of Egypt. So here we are using which because it is a thing. If the place is followed, this is an important point. If the place is followed by a subject, noun or a pronoun, we use where. But if it's followed by a verb, we have to use which after names like Cairo or cities, whatever. He lived in Cairo, which is the capital of Egypt. They went to the next town. They met an old man. Notice here where town is a place and it's followed by a pronoun they. That's why we use where, we don't use which. Which followed by verbs when we are talking or referring to places. But when we refer to places and the relative pronoun followed by a subject or a pronoun, we use where. They went to the next town where they met an old man. So the missing relative pronoun here is where. The old man, we are talking about a man. So in this case, we have to use whose clothes looked and dirty was really the king. The old man was really the king is a complete sentence by itself. So this clause together forms what we call non-defining relative clause. And we use whose here because we are talking about a possessive. Whose clothes? Her father had traditional opinions, refused to let her marry. Her father, father is a person. That's why we use who here. Her father who had traditional opinions. This information is extra. I can leave them out. So this is non-defining relative clause. I can say her father refuses to let her marry because she has only one father. I know what father we are talking about. So this is extra information. We use who here because we are talking about a person. Another question for you. The question says, correct the sentences. You will have such questions in a Tawjih exam. Each year you will have a question like this. Correct the sentences. There is one mistake. In each sentence, you have to find out only one mistake. That is not the woman, comma, who gave me the money. Now, where is the mistake in this sentence? If I use a comma, this means that I can delete this information. It's not necessary. It's extra information. But if we delete it, the sentence becomes, that is not the woman. This is not a complete sentence by itself. So this information is necessary to mention after the noun, to define the noun. That's why the mistake here is that I have to delete the comma. No commas are used in defining relative clauses. So the new sentence, the correct sentence should be like this. That is not the woman, without commas, no comma, who gave me the money. Just we delete the comma. This is how we correct this mistake. A second sentence, she lives with her parents who are quite old. Now here, no commas in this sentence. But if I delete this clause, the meaning becomes clear. She lives with her parents. This is a complete, meaningful sentence by itself. So this information is extra. That's why I have to put it between commas. No need to mention this. So the mistake here is there is no comma here. I have to add a comma to make this sentence clear or correct. Number 3, once there was a dragon which tail was very strong. Notice that which followed by a verb, by a noun. This is the verb. This means this pronoun, this relative pronoun has to be a relative possessive pronoun, which is whose, not which. Once there was a dragon whose, not which, whose tail was very long. So I replace which with whose. Number 4, he now lives in Jenin, comma, where is a town. Notice where it's followed by a verb. As I said before, where if I have to use it to talk about places, I have to follow it by a noun or a pronoun. But here it's followed by a verb, so where is not correct. I have to replace it with which. He now lives in Jenin, which is a town in the north. Number 5 is that the place, which, notice here, I follow it by a pronoun. So we have to replace which with the pronoun where. That is the place where, not which, you found the letter. Number 6, I like to meet people whose. Notice whose there. I can't use the possessive pronoun, relative possessive pronoun whose and the relative or the possessive adjective there together. I have to delete because I used whose in the place of the relative, the possessive adjective. I delete there. I like to meet people whose, without there, with whose interests are similar to mine. I think I have one more question. Okay, the last. Okay, the last question for you. Join the two short sentences to make one longer sentence. So here, this is a short sentence and this is a short sentence. I have to join them together to form one long sentence. The first sentence says, that is the house, I was born there. There here refers to the house. So you say, that's the house. Immediately I delete there and replace it with where, then a pronoun, where I was born. These two simple sentences, I join them together now using this relative clause to form one long sentence. She is the woman. That's the first simple sentence. I borrowed her books. Notice here it's a possessive adjective. So when I want to join them together, I say she is the woman, the first sentence as it is. Because this is here a possessive, I replace it with whose. And whose immediately followed by the noun. Whose books, then you complete I borrowed. I am going to Ramallah. It isn't very far from here. It refers to Ramallah. So, I am going to Ramallah, the first sentence as it is. Notice it's followed by a verb. So, although we are talking about places, but we use which, not where. Which is not very far from here. So, I delete it and I replace it with which. Number 4, the main character is a young man. The man's wife. Also notice that we are using possessive apostrophe here. The man's wife is always angry. The main character whose wife is always angry with him is a young man. If we delete this clause, all of it, the main character is a young man, the sentence becomes clear. That's why I put this clause between commas, because it is a non-defining clause. Just gives extra information. Number 5. The last one. The last example, my brother is good at basketball. He is very tall for his age. I am talking about brother. He here refers to my brother. And notice brother is preceded by possessive pronoun to make it more definite. My brother, comma, I use, in place of he, I use who because I'm referring to a person. My brother who is very good at basketball is very tall for his ages. This clause between commas, this means that I can take it out. And we can say, my brother is very tall for his age. Okay. هذا نهاية درسنا لحلقة اليوم اللي هي عن الجمل الموصولة أو relative clauses الصف 11. نأمل أن تنتهي هذه المحنة على خير وأن يخرج منها شعبنا بكل أريحية وبكل خير، ونتمنى السلامة للجميع. لكن واجبنا أنه نقدم ما نستطيع حتى يبقى طلابنا الأعزاء على تواصل مع مادتهم التعليمية ولا ينقطعوا عنها. كان معكم الأستاذ عماد عوض الله من مدرسة ذكور بروكين الثانوية. نتمنى لكم صحة وعام سعيد.